Live.
We have an unidentified flying object.
I'm Jack Oswald, and you're listening.
This is Hudson Harley, and you're listening to...
I'm Richard C. Hoagland, and you're listening to...
I'm Art Bell, and you're listening to Dr. J Radio Live.
We have an unidentified flying object.
Welcome back to another episode of Dr. J Radio Live, a very special episode and a very different one at that. We are not having one guest today. We're actually having a roundtable with lots of friends. Before I introduce them all, well, in case you haven't heard, well, most of you probably wouldn't have heard, these people have, it is my birthday. Originally, I would not be doing a show on Friday, but I got enough encouragement to do so. And before I introduce everyone, there is something I posted on Twitter that I'm going to say now. This is my favorite quote, and it could apply to a lot of situations, and many of you may know why, but this is actually something that when I first read this quote, I actually put in my law school admittance paper when you had to write a statement, essentially, of anything you want, a personal statement. And it goes like this: far better it is to dare mighty things and to win glorious triumphs, although checkered by failure, than it is to take rank with those poor souls who neither suffer much nor enjoy much, because they live in the great twilight that knows neither victory nor defeat. And that was Teddy Roosevelt. And all I could say, folks, is dare mighty things. Don't live in the great twilight. Don't always wonder what could happen. Take that risk, even if it ends up in failure or heartache or financial loss. It's always worth it. And with that being said, let's start to introduce our large group of friends. Well, first I'm going to start with the station manager. Late night in the Midlands, we have Katie Neely, along with her husband Daryl, is also the station managers and the every single show, 39 shows on this network, LNM, Late Night in the Midlands. They are actually the audio engineers. So Katie, welcome to the show.
Yeehaw. Hello.
Right on. Yeah, we haven't done this since we had our awesome night, Saturday night, little sex chat that night. Anyhow, let's go to my guest.
Yes. Just because it's your birthday, now you actually revealed to the world a week before your birthday how you lost your virginity.
I did.
I did.
I know. And I dropped the name of the girl, so I hope she's not out there listening. And if she is, well, then now she knows how I truly felt. But hey, nonetheless, now I want to move on to a guest co-host, someone who I'm trying to introduce into this industry who happens to also be very skilled in technology, skilled in things. For instance, I'm into electronic dance music. If you haven't heard an interview where I was the guest with Jaffe Ryder, you may not know that I used to produce raves. Well, Adam Keene has some really cool mixes, and it brings me back to the time, and I still rock with them. So, Adam, welcome to the show.
Hey, never too old to dance, are we?
Never. Now, joining me from down the street, well, not really, several miles, Woodland Hills, is a friend I have known since 1996, if not earlier. Mr. Chris from Woodland Hills, welcome.
Hey, happy birthday. Good to be with you tonight.
Thank you. We also have my social media manager, Pam Vredenburg, and the founder and creator and operator of UnitedTruthSeekers.com. Pam, good evening.
Good evening. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, of course, the next two are important. For one of them, they're both radio hosts, and they're both on this network. And as a matter of fact, one did all the fabulous, amazing work that you see at drjradiolive.com, including the branding. And that happens to be Tom Schaefer, who's also the operator of Free Cosmos. Tom, welcome back.
Hey, Dr. J, good to be here. It's been a while, my friend.
It absolutely has, bud, and that's why.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you. And this is the first of many, so remember that. And of course, That leaves us with Robert Morningstar. You have to know that. Another great friend and another great guest. And like I said, another radio host. And also probably now that Jim Marrs is dead, I have to say the hands down world expert on JFK, Mr. Morningstar. Welcome back.
Thank you, John. And I want to wish you a very happy birthday. And at the appropriate time, I intend to sing you happy birthday on this show. So let me know.
Okay. All right. I haven't had that done today, and it'll be fun. So today, obviously, Roundtable. Whatever you guys want to, guys and gals, whatever want to talk about, hey, it's open. But I figured we could start with some world affairs briefs because we got a couple Trumpers on here. As a matter of fact, I'm so far to the right that Republicans call me left. I mean, the Republican Party's to the left. That's how far I am to the right. So the best way to describe me is a Trumper. I am wearing my Make America Great Again hat. I cannot wait till I see handcuffs slapped on Hillary Rodham Clinton, Barack Hussein Obama, James Comey, everybody down the list, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Lisa Page, Rat Weaselston, whatever we call him with Roger Stone, all these people. That'll be the day I will be singing joy, and I could be wearing my F. Hillary shirt in public, and no one's going to say anything. And when I wear my Hillary for Prison shirt, people will finally say, yeah, she's serving time in Leavenworth or something like that. So this is my first thing I wanted to mention, and I'm going to turn it to Chris for a reason after I say it, and then by all means, folks, whatever you guys want to talk about. Now, because we have the World Affairs, the InfoWars World Affairs expert, Joel Skousen, who's also my World Affairs expert, someone who comes on at least once a month. He has the World Affairs Brief. It's a subscription-based newsletter, and it's really in-depth. It really talks about the deep state, enemies of the deep state, and things like that. And even if you don't subscribe to it, if you go to worldaffairsbrief.com, you'll see a lot of the news. Important news that you normally will not see in mainstream media. The enemy, such as CNN, Clinton News Network, or Communist News Network, or Corrupt News Network. So here's my first topic I want to bring up because it involves a good friend, two good friends who are guests. It says, Mueller using entrapment and coercion. That's the first story in World Affairs Brief. Now, this reminds me of poor Roger Stone. This guy has dropped $500,000 back in September. I'm sure that figure is much higher now, just for lawyers paying for Mueller. And if you all have been paying attention to the news, you know that poor Corsi, spent 40 hours negotiating a plea with the special counsel. They wanted him to plead guilty to one count of perjury because he forgot something, later corrected himself, and he has now written a tell-all book about the Gestapo tactics used by Robert Mueller. And a lot of us, especially me and Chris, think that this is just a pure witch hunt because there's no evidence that Russia colluded. The only evidence is that the U.S. and the UK colluded with the MI6, John Brennan of the CIA, Christopher Steele of the MI6, and using CIA's project or program Umbra, UMBRA, framed Russia. Chris, what do you think of Robert Mueller, the Gestapo techniques, and also right now the fact that he's trying to entrap people and using coercion to get everybody involved with Trump?
Well, I think one of the most interesting things is when people on the left or the liberals keep listing just how many indictments Mueller has come up with. But the interesting thing is that not a single indictment has anything to do with collusion with Russia. They're all process crimes, which are, perjury, lying to a federal agent. Then you have Manafort with some financial crimes from literally over 10 years ago, which have already been looked at by the Department of Justice and not prosecuted previously. So it's obvious that Mueller is trying to make up a narrative that does not exist.
Okay, I was just asking, right, and everybody remember use the Skype chat, except for Chris. I was just asking who wants to follow up. So we got Tom, Free Cosmos. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, here's the thing I think we all need to do, and this is one word that I think is missing from the national lexicon, and that is objective truth. The thing is, we've got so much polarization going on right now that the ability, for example, objective truth. What is objective truth? You jump off a 3-story building, you're going to go splat, whether you believe it or not. Objective truth is different from subjective truth. And so what we have is a lot of subjective truth that's being fought back and forth, back and forth. It's all subjective. It's from my side, you're wrong. From your side, I'm wrong. And so what's happening is we need to look at the subjective or the objective truth now in a lot of things, and it's being buried. And so I think where people get terms like fake news is because there's too much subjective truth being inserted instead of just the objective truth. For example, a man died. That's a fact. Who was the man? Khashoggi. He died. Now, the rest of it on top of that has been added. A lot of subjective truth has been added to that. All the other things that are happening around us, just name a topic, and it doesn't matter. And this is where I think people kind of dive in and they want to make the media bad. Not all media is bad. There are a lot of bad actors, and there are a lot of bad actors that are injecting subjective truth into the objective truth that we should be hearing. We all just want the objective truth. What happened? When did it happen? Who got hurt? Who got killed? What happened? Just give us the news. The problem is that a lot of subjective truth is being injected. So I think that people could just take a break, try to find the objective truth, and before we decide to just shoot each other because you're red, I'm blue, you're red, we're all just going to hate each other. We really need to do a little more critical thinking. And this is part of the dumbing down that's occurred, is that people do not have good critical thinking skills. And so I see things like what's happening in this whole circus with Trump and everything else. People are triggered. They love to trigger each other. You're a Trump-tard. I'm a libtard. I'm a libtard. You're a Trump-tard. You're a libtard. Whatever. I find it humorous when people call me these kinds of names. They like to use liberal, just like Rush Limbaugh. You got to have the right inflection on the word liberals, as if it's like an infectious disease. You know, Jesus was a liberal. But anyway, getting back to the point, we need to look more for objective truth than the subjective truths. The subjective truths, a lot of them are not based on facts. They're based on a lot of connecting of the dots. It would seem this is leading here, this is leading there. And a lot of the subjective truths that are out there are just not factual.
Chris, you want to respond to that? Yeah, go ahead, because I was going to throw it to Robert after you.
Yeah. First of all, I wanted to say that I could not agree more with what you just said. I do take issue with one thing, though, and that is the notion of subjective truth. I'm not sure if it's necessarily truth. Do you understand what I'm saying? If it's subjective, and it's probably not really true.
Tom or Robert, anybody? Okay, going once.
I'd like to say
I'm sorry, I have my mic.
Go ahead, Robert.
I'd like to say a few things about
the whole thing is, what he said is that subjective truth is the problem. What's true for you, that's true for you. That's not.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's not truth.
Yeah.
Only
That's
objective
truth.
truth.
Exactly. Exactly.
Only
I'm sorry.
objective
Yeah.
truth.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Right.
That's why we got to search for the objective truth, the facts. What are the facts? Let's just get to the facts first. You know, a plane crashed. Okay, fine. How many people died? Fine. Now, was there purpose behind it? We think that so-and-so caused the plane crash, but that's subjective truth. We don't know for sure. So there's all this subjective opinionating that's been injected into the news cycle from every side. You got stuff going on at Fox News. You got stuff going on at CNN. You got stuff going on at MSNBC. Each network actually is providing some objective truth, but now they are also injecting subjective truth. So you've got this.
Well, they're injecting subjective opinion.
Correct.
Right.
That's
correct, Bob. Absolutely.
Well, that's the difference. But you know, the topic is Robert Mueller. I don't want to get away from that, so I'd like to give you some objective facts about Robert Mueller.
Okay.
A longtime operator of global interests in the United States government, a colleague of the Clinton cabal. Robert Mueller delivered uranium to Russia twice. Once in September 2009, under guise of returning to Russia uranium, highly enriched uranium that had been impounded by federal agents in Georgia. A year later, he made another trip and he delivered the final sample for the Uranium One deal. So Robert Mueller is part and parcel of a treasonous cabal that sold 20% of America's uranium.
Wait.
Yes.
You
Now
just
listen,
jumped from the facts to an
Hey,
objective.
listen, you spoke. I'm going to take my turn, okay?
You made him
Facts.
into the cabal.
Yeah, guys, one at a time. Let Robert finish, guys.
The Clinton Foundation is a cabal. It's a globalist cabal that was about to turn over the United States government to UN rule and impose the carbon tax that is imposed by the Paris Global Climate Change Accord. And you can see the effects of the Climate Change Accord in France right now, where they are tear gassing and rubber bulleting the 84,000 yellow vests who are protesting the carbon tax that's been imposed on France, because they dictate that everyone has a carbon footprint and will have to pay for it. So that is the bullet that President Trump helped us dodge, in addition to TPP and NAFTA. But Robert Mueller is one of the people that's involved deeply in Uranium One. He asked for his job as FBI director from President Trump. President Trump said no, basically firing him from even applying. The next day, Rosenstein appointed him a special counsel to investigate the president, never realizing that his letter of recommendation to dismiss Robert Mueller would be revealed to the public. So we're watching a very high-stakes internecine war between the deep state and the real state, which is the president, the Pentagon, and the Office of Naval Intelligence. So that's where it stands. And his indictments are farces. I never laughed so hard than the day that the judge sentenced Papadopoulos and said 14 days. That should tell you what's going on. And thank God, it restored my faith in the judiciary. That judge could see through the farce, and he gave a farcical sentence to it. So that's all I have to say at this point about Robert Mueller.
I just wanted to say, Bob, I respect you highly. Just wanted the listeners to know I really respect you, Bob. But even though you and I have a kind of an opposing viewpoint on Donald Trump, but
sure.
You're absolutely, when you present facts, I can be convinced with facts, the objective truth. I can always be convinced with that. That's when I go, oh, maybe I don't have anything to say here. Maybe the stuff I thought I knew was wrong. When people come forward with objective facts, I'm like, oh, really? I had no idea.
I'm the same way. You know, when I'm corrected, I'm grateful because, you know, as a navigator, being given a course correction is a great favor because it means you'll get to your destination. If you're on the wrong track and you think you're on the right course, you will never get there. So as Timothy Leary once said to someone in his audience, the first thing you have to do to navigate in this world is to know that your own navigation is correct, and really understanding facts and correlating them correctly will lead you to a clearer course to your destination. So thank you for that.
Okay, let me ask Chris before he has to drop off. Chris, what do you have to say about this?
Actually, this is going backwards a little bit, so forgive me if I'm a little off topic here. But apparently some people with opposing views don't like the word liberal. So I would just like to ask, you know, respectfully, what they would identify as or what they would prefer to be called, if anything.
Anybody? Tom?
Well, I am one. But I became one. And the reason I became one, and I don't identify with the extreme left. So a lot of times people, they want to mix the term liberal with Antifa and extreme left.
I understand the difference, definitely.
Yeah. But a lot of people don't. I see this used as a pejorative. He's a bunch of dang liberals, or as Rush says it, the liberals. Okay, so the pejorative sense has been toned into the word liberal. And if you look up the word liberal in the dictionary, most people would actually secretly agree to what they see. If you actually go out and look at the dictionary term of liberal, you go, wow, actually, that's not so bad. It's the way it's been politically twisted. Yeah. So I actually wear the term, people call me a libtard. I actually wear it with, I laugh when people call me that, because I would rather be identified with some of the more positive aspects of being a, quote, liberal or liberal-minded than being identified with conservatism. Conservatism is what I was raised with. I was raised in hardcore right-wing conservatism. I've been there. I already know. I've read more Bible than most people can forget. So I understand the conservative side of the fence. I get it. I get the whole thing. I've known well-known conservatives. I've known some people of note, and I get it. I get it completely. So, but it's not something I can find myself identifying with when it becomes mean. There is a meanness to conservatism and to the GOP platform now that I cannot find myself identifying with. My platform, if you go to freepeopleofthecosmos.org, sorry for a shameless plug, but my platform is peace, love, happiness, and balance, and bringing humaneness back to humanity. That's my goal. That's my whole mission. That's what I've been given. That's where we need to go.
One question. Isn't meanness inherently subjective?
No, when people start bleeding,
no,
or when children are getting tear gassed, that's mean. When people are put in cages, that's mean. Okay, it's not. No. There's an objective. There's an objective truth to meanness. Moral relativism is an infectious disease in our society. So I agree. Okay, so there is meanness to a lot of what the GOP is doing. I don't even have to describe all this. This is. There's plenty of. The list is long. Okay, of the meanness, the mean-spiritedness. And so this is something that I push, and I'm sorry I'm on my platform, but
I live near Maxine Waters, okay? When I'm told that I cannot go eat because I'm going to be heckled, you know what I want to do? I want to go stand outside her freaking office with a noose to lynch that woman.
And these are the icons of extremism. She's an icon of extremism.
Yeah, but Tom, you're pretending there's no meanness. You're pretending there's no meanness.
That's mean. I don't endorse it. I'm not endorsing it at all.
I see tremendous worse meanness in Antifa and Black Lives Matter.
I agree.
And La Raza.
Totally agree.
But
hey,
that's the modern Democrat Party.
You know what La Raza means?
Yeah,
it means the race.
Democrats.
I know.
It's the most stupid thing because the Spanish people are not a race. They're an ethnicity. So why do they call their bigoted organization La Raza? Right. What race are they talking about?
You're preaching to the choir, Bob. And see, the thing is, we've got to get above all of this.
I was raised liberal. I love the word liberal. Liberal was hijacked and perverted. That's the problem.
Correct.
I feel I am still liberal in many, many ways. But not by the definition that it goes by today. My favorite liberal was Will Rogers. And he said something about liberty. He said, liberty is a funny thing. The more you give, the more you get. And you have to ensure each other's freedoms. And the left is not ensuring each other's freedoms. It's trying to strip them away. Freedom of speech, the Second Amendment rights to defend yourself, and one that I emphasize more than any other lately, the right to privacy. That's a constitutional
I agree, Bob, but you also have extremes on the right. You have the alt-right, you have the Nazis, you have the neo-Nazis, you have the Aryan nations, you have all these extreme rightists. Does that make you one? No.
No, but let me ask you a question. How many in America are there?
Does not make the Republican most of them. That does not apply to most of the Republican Party.
Exactly, and that does not apply to most of the people that are Democrats.
Everyone who wears a red hat as a Nazi.
Right, and exactly.
And remember,
that's the same thing about Nazis. People that are Democrats are not out throwing, they're not Antifa. They're not those people.
I know that. We
know this about each other, that there is a center, there's a sane center that we need to recognize. Instead of slapping these labels on each other as a pejorative, we need to roll towards the middle and call out the extremes on both sides. I have no issue with that at all.
Let's take the twisting of the word national recently, because the president said he was a nationalist. So they're trying to exclusively associate the word national with Nazis. But we have the National League, we have the National Pastime, we have National Airlines, or we had the National Airlines. So what's the bad word in Nazi? It's not national, it's socialist. National Socialist People's Party in Germany. So we have to be aware of how the media,
absolutely,
Operation Mockingbird, is twisting and perverting our language and using
the same thing with the word
against
socialist. We already have multiple socialist programs at work in our government and in our society at large. And people have turned socialism into a four-letter word as well. Socialism in its core, just like capitalism in its core, both are actually decent principles when you look at the core definitions of them. But they
Do you remember what
evil?
Do you remember what Churchill said about socialism? He said socialism is the gospel of envy, the credo of greed, its biggest failure. Capitalism's biggest failure is the unequal distribution of wealth, while socialism's greatest virtue is the equal distribution of misery. And that statement stands as fact when you look at Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba,
and those
China.
Are not, okay, but we already have several socialist-style programs balanced with capitalism. We have capitalism, we have predatory capitalism run by corporatist locusts who go from country to country to seek to on a race to the bottom on wages, but we'll get back to that in a second.
I agree.
Socialism,
I call that corporate fascism, by the way.
Right.
And I would like to point people over the plug. UFO Digest, headline story, is corporate fascism in control. Google is corporate fascism. Facebook is corporate fascism.
And yet we're enjoying that.
They are a greater threat to us than the government.
But we're on their platform right now, tonight.
That's right.
So
and they could shut us off at any moment. And as I argued last week, the government itself has no right to strip you of freedom of speech. How much less so a corporation that has no authority?
They have no accountability. That's the problem with the big tech companies.
Well, we have to make them accountable.
Absolutely.
And I suggest
totally
let me get some other views here.
We have to break it up. We have to break it up.
Let's get some other views here. Adam,
sure.
Got anything you got to say?
Yeah. You know, I think that what it basically boils down to is we've added labels to everything. Everything has to have a label. Everything has to be compartmentalized, and then that creates, its very own. It creates a pot of stew for everyone to throw their ingredients in, and it seems to me that in order for this whole thing to get turned around is we're going to have to relabel everything, or we're going to have to do away with borders. We're going to have to do away with what we know.
The labels are triggers. They're used to trigger people into anger. It's all about division. That's really what it's all about.
We used to not have these triggers, though. This used to not be a problem.
To speak to one another.
You're right.
If you don't have labels, how do you have a conversation? It's a
but the big psyops
tool
are twisting the labels. They've twisted the definitions till they become four-letter words, so that we
I don't know, but you got to remember,
it's
the Democrats are the ones who started the Democratic Socialist Party.
But they're not that anymore, though. That was days gone by, dude. That was years ago. That's
no,
DSA,
that's
modern.
DSA, Democratic Socialist Americans. You got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You got Bernie Sanders. And on top of this, think, folks, when was the last time you had a National Socialist Party? It was called the Nazi Party.
Right.
It was called the Nazi Party. That's exactly right.
Now, see, you drag all this old baggage into these labels to flog each other with. That's the whole trick.
But you're blinding yourself to the reality of the statement he just made. It's actually perfectly true.
Yeah.
They have declared themselves.
But I don't see Bernie Sanders as a Nazi. I don't see that.
Yeah.
He's Jewish.
He's
He's not going to be a Nazi.
A communist is
no. Here's what it is.
Communism and Nazism are the same thing.
Adam.
Socialism, just two extremes as to how they run the show.
As a young man in the United States with the right to vote.
Val in the chat on YouTube is saying, please, one at a time.
Yes, please, everybody. Yes. No interrupting, because it doesn't play good for our listeners. Right. So, Adam, go ahead.
As a young man in the United States with the right to vote, in my 30 years on this earth, back from when I was in high school till now, I saw the formation of this, in air quotes here, Democratic Socialist. And it's not the Socialist Party. They do not know what they're talking about. With all due respect to anybody on the left, that is not socialism. They want it to be, but it's not. And I'm sorry, but I mean, I one of the reasons I don't like labels is because everything's mislabeled. Nobody knows what they're talking about anymore. They read some, I'm not going to call it fake news, I'm just going to call it misleading propaganda on the internet, and they run with it. And they think that the person that they read is right.
Agreed.
You have to listen to tons of views read tons of articles, and then you gather everything. You look over it, and you weigh out your pros and cons. You decide which you want to be, but you need to get it correct.
Pam, you got a comment on that? Because we haven't had you in the conversation.
I agree with Adam, basically. You know, there's so much information given to us that we have to read it all and censor it all and make sure, you're welcome, Val, make sure that we're getting the correct information. And that's why I have my network right now. Well, I've had it for several years, maybe 6 or 7, I don't even remember. United Truth Seekers, because I don't want to hear what the mainstream media has to say. I want the truth.
Chris,
you know?
What do you have to say about? What's your response?
Can I add something?
Sure.
I also believe in. We had, when I lived up in Montana, we had some people that lived up there. I lived in St. Marie, Montana. It's a empty Air Force base, and they made it for housing for everyone. And we had some Southern citizens up there. I'd like to know what you guys think about the Southern citizens, since we're talking about all these different titles.
Chris, what do you think about that?
Well, I actually used to know a guy that was very much into that movement, or whatever you want to call that group of people. I found it very interesting, but not very credible in many ways. In terms of their understanding of the American legal system and stuff, it seemed that they really didn't understand American law or legal system in any way, shape, or form. So I didn't take them very seriously. I thought they were really nice people. I thought they were very patriotic, but a little bit not quite all there, to be honest.
Tom?
Can I say something about that?
Go ahead.
From what I gathered from knowing Southern citizens is they didn't want any titles. They didn't want any laws.
My understanding is that it's very anarchist, which, if you understand what the true term behind anarchy is, means self-rule.
Yeah.
So there's another word that got kind of hijacked and turned into a bunch of dang anarchists, which was confused with chaos, but it wasn't. It meant self-rule. I have a similar philosophy, but I'm not really trumpeting in it very loud, and that is, I believe in what's called the galactic perspective, that you are a sentient being. You're standing on a rocky planet, and then the place on the planet, because it's geographic lottery, seems to determine what your rights are. And so those of us that are born and raised in the United States, we got the lucky geographic lottery, and therefore we seem to have the most quote unquote freedom, end quotes, but other people in other geographic lotteries did not get as many rights. So from my perspective, the sovereign citizen movement, it sounds in theory like a lot of what I talk about, and that is, as a sentient being, you're not really, you've incarnated here, and you have certain inalienable rights. Those have been eroded. So I understand where these people are coming from. How far they're going to get with what they want to do, I don't know. That remains to be seen.
Let's go to Robert, since this is this table we sort of started.
I believe in American individualism, and I believe in a constant adjustment of your views in light of provable facts. And I believe that we should adhere very rigidly, strictly to the word of the Constitution and not stretch or distort its meaning. That's why I'm not worried about the current situation with the Congress or the Senate, because I think they're irrelevant. What I'm satisfied with is that we have a Supreme Court now that will protect the Constitution as the founders intended for at least 50 years. So let's go at it with all these elections, every 2 years, every 4 years. Let's go at it and keep working it. It's like a huge milling machine, and the product gets better as time goes by.
Let's go to Adam.
Hey, like I was saying earlier with the labels thing, and with voting, everybody has a voice. You have the right to vote. I personally have never voted in a major election. I decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to play into the paradigm, and I could just as easily sit back and enjoy and have just as much fun watching everybody else get outraged over it. I don't want to participate. And people always say, if you don't vote, you don't have a right to complain. And I tend to not complain, to be quite frank with everyone.
Well, I definitely voted for Donald J. Trump, and during the election, I gotta tell you, when I went to vote myself, and I wore my F. Hillary shirt and my Make America Great Again hat, everybody was looking at me, giving me the dirtiest looks, the finger, and some people even saying stuff to me. I was even threatened that I couldn't vote at the polling place unless I hid my shirts. I flipped it inside out, but they let me wear my MAGA hat. Let me say this, though. Midterms, I go to vote during the primary, and sure enough, not only is no one giving me the finger or no one saying anything bad or giving me dirty looks, I actually got some praises for making my Make America Great Again hat. Anyhow, we have a little over 20 minutes, and we could stay on this topic or any other topic. And since it's Pam's turn, before I go back to Chris, I want to turn it to you if you want to continue on this or if you want to move to anything else, because there's a lot of world news going on and other topics that are beyond the world, if you want to say.
As far as me, I'd like to follow up with what Adam said. I voted one time in my life, and I'm 55. And the reason I voted was because I wanted to see and experience it.
Chris, what about you?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, may I ask who you voted for and why did you see that particular election as being important enough? I know you said you wanted the experience, but I mean, was there anything about the candidate that struck you to make you go out and vote?
Nope. I don't even remember what year it was, who was being in an election or anything.
Okay.
Tom.
Well, Chris Matthews on, oh my God, MSNBC, his favorite quote is that all politics is local. And if there's an issue that matters to you, like legalizing weed or something to do with your property taxes, people will vote locally if they have a stake in what's being voted on. I didn't vote for Trump or Hillary, so there's no ground there for anybody to get me on. I saw no value in voting for the lesser of two evils, which is still evil. But I did find myself voting in local recent elections for things I thought were going to directly impact me. I think that's where people will find themselves. And so I understand why people won't vote nationally. I get that. If you don't feel you have any value in the vote, just listen to George Carlin talk about why he doesn't vote. Classic speech that he makes. It's too bad George is gone now. But it's when we have a stake in what's happening or we feel we can affect change with our vote, then we'll vote. But I understand where Adam's coming from. I understand where everybody's coming from that doesn't want to vote. I saw no value in the national vote, so I get where you're coming from.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, I'd like to reply to that. I'd like to say that
let's
George
go,
Carlin,
Robert, and then Chris. Go ahead.
Yeah, George Carlin was a genius. I love him very much. But what was true then is not true now. The populace that he was addressing was one more deeply under mind control than our own. We've awakened to a certain level through the internet and alternate news sources. People have awakened to the facts that, for example, the Zapruder film is a consciously engineered mass hallucination that the CIA and the deep state killed President Kennedy. We're coming out of it, but still almost half of the population, their minds and their hearts are in the grip of a mind control apparatus that I call the Mockingbird Press. And that's what we have to overthrow, fight, counter. And as far as Adam, I just wanted to say to you about the concept of not voting. You know, it's kind of like Pontius Pilate. I wash my hands of this affair. I have no involvement in it. But I would remind you of a saying of founding father Edmund Burke, who said, "Evil prevails because good men see and choose to do nothing." And we have a system, it is flawed, But if we don't work it, it'll be taken over by people who are less concerned about our country than we are, and more concerned about power. And I think
Robert,
that's why I vote. That's why I vote.
You always have a fantastic way of bringing optimism and a extremely useful and valid point of view to the table. I sure do appreciate that about you.
Thank you.
That is,
I'll tell you why.
The
The
third quote you told me today
wants to make us depressed.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on just a couple things real quick. We were talking about how all elections are local and politics are local, and it has to really kind of affect the people in a tangible way. Voting for national elections, it's far away in Washington D.C. and et cetera, et cetera. But to me, the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court nominations are vitally important because those things will affect every single American's lives in profound ways for years and years to come.
So that's what you would call strategic voting. That's more of a strategic vote, regardless of who you're voting for. You see it as okay, I voted for this person not because has character or whatever, but because once he's in, he's going to give me other things, which lead to what I really want.
Well, yes. I would just say that it would affect any individual's life more with Supreme Court differences than local, propositions or something for your city council or state type of, nothing at the local level will affect you like First Amendment, Second Amendment rights and things of that nature.
Not necessarily true. Okay, the local elections affect property taxes. Whether you can vape in a public place or not. Local elections, the local state politics is right down where you live. Now, I understand your long-term strategy where you want to vote for a particular person because you feel that person is going to do this or that. I get that. But for me, I saw no value that I have zero power connected with the national vote. I saw zero value in Hillary. I saw zero value in Trump. I wasn't going to vote for either, and I was not calculating my participation on whether they would ultimately put in other, various Supreme Court justices. That's a strategic voting plan that you have when you vote that way. I didn't have that. For me, it's about the character of the individual, that person being in office, and I saw zero character in both of them. In fact, that's what I really want to I told John earlier, I really wanted to put out there that character should matter for the people. That if you're going to vote, character should matter. And this idea that you're going to strategically vote for somebody in a kind of an end justifies the means manner, to me is, look what we got now. I just, I can't say it enough. I don't have resonance with a sociopathic real estate guy who's used to flipping deals and making cash and has loose morals. This is not my idea of what the president of the United States should be.
Yeah,
why did you vote for Clinton?
Yeah.
No, Clinton had no better. Clinton was no better. Clinton's just as flawed.
I was a fool too. I was a fool too.
Okay, let me get Chris's opinion on this because I know what we differ upon this severely. Because to me, he's a patriot.
No.
Yes, but I wanted to say on the issue of voting, to vote or not to vote. I think that's a really deep philosophical question that you could go back and forth for hours on. But I do want to say that I totally understand and respect those people who choose not to vote. The whole lesser of two evils is still evil. And I get that. I understand that. So I don't take any issue with those people. I have, total respect, and I don't complain about it. So that's my feelings on whether or not to vote. But once again, is vaping or property taxes really as important to you as your constitutional rights?
But I have a question.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, since we're talking about this voting situation, how many of the presidents that actually got elected followed through on what they promised they were going to do? Now, I know Trump has followed through on some. Obama, his thing was he was going to get rid of Guantanamo Bay. But how many of the presidents, it seems to me they all make promises, but they don't follow through on them.
Let me say about Gitmo. If you recall, we had that CIA interrogator on, Everybody who's ever released from Guantanamo Bay almost always reoffends, and they come back with a vengeance. I'm sorry, but unfortunately, the only thing that's going to happen is Gitmo is going to have to stay open until all those prisoners die, these detainees.
But why did Obama use it as part of his political
He's a
campaign?
stupid Muslim who brought ISIS to America,
Now,
funded
John.
ISIS and Hamas. He did. Oh, geez. Yeah.
Yep.
Obama
You know
did
what, though?
first.
He had other things that he wanted to do, and why? Couldn't he do them? He was blocked by Congress. So
Well, he wasn't blocked by Congress. Come on, he has 60 senators. He had the House and the Congress.
Well, he
was
didn't get a lot
blocked by
done.
common
He's a nice
sense.
guy, but he didn't get a lot done.
I know, well, that's a problem. The question
A lot of
was asked, why don't see? It's not a dictatorship. The president comes in, he has to work with the system, and then that's the purpose of the Congress. I think that we have a good situation here. It's not good to have both parties in control, one party controlling both houses. Think of hammer and anvil. You know, if you're going to forge a sword and beat it into a sword, how could you just do it with a hammer? No, you have to have resistance. That makes it dynamic. This is going to be a very interesting 2 years. This new Congress that's coming in, but big things are coming down the pike before the end of the year, and
I think we have to remember that sometimes the president's business is not just his business. I feel like there's a plan and a path set out for him. His hand.
Yeah, but when the president starts giving money to Kenya, then we have a problem.
Yes.
We have homeless veterans that can't even, some of them can't even, they're not housed. They're sleeping on the streets.
We're still
the
giving
biggest
money
problem we have is we've been all trained to do this thing that's happening now in the last 20 years is king making. Because what happened? We have a corporatist buyout of Congress who has become basically ineffective. Now, this is starting to turn around, but for the most part, for several decades, we had an ineffective Congress. So what happened? People started saying, give us a king. So we had King Clinton, King Bush, King Obama. We had all these kings, and they were ineffective. And so when they weren't effective, then we went to the judiciary for them to legislate. So we had everybody legislating and making policies and making things happen, except for the Congress, which was supposed to be doing its job and wasn't. So really, forget about all these people that we're mad at, all the Bushes, Clintons, and Obamas, and everybody that we're mad at. Forget about all that. That's all the king making that was put on us. That was the last resort. It's an imbalance of the first, second, third, and fourth estates. The Congress is the one that really people should be mad at, and they're the ones that need to, they are our representatives. We've gone from a representative government now to this leadership style government. We don't need leaders, we need representatives. And so right now we have the executive making policy, and then everybody's getting pissed off because it's a partisan policy.
Hey, well, we got under 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure someone who joined us late in this call, and I'm sorry for bringing him late. Kaiser, you with us?
Hey, how's it going there, Dr. J? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You're live on all of us. You have anything you'd like to say in the next 9 minutes?
Oh, yeah. Now, here's the thing. It is supposed to be a representative republic, right? We all understand this. Well, our representatives have been corporatized through buyoffs, payoffs, and all that other crap, right? Now, here's the thing. It took a Manhattan billionaire Democrat to bring the Republican Party to heel back to a working man's party. The Democrats, they're already co-opted by corporatocracy. So anybody who wants to say orange man bad, and they want to keep going to those NPC memes that they all degenerate into it, it's become tribal. When is Americanism and being an American, when has that become a bad word? When I grew up, I'm 50 years old. I don't remember ever a time in my past history until recently with all this SJW nonsense. I do not remember a time where anybody said, that's a Democrat, don't talk to him. That's a Republican, don't talk to him. Yeah. That's a fascist. That's a Nazi. That's a communist. We always had communist. You know, it took how many years until we found out that all the investigations that were being done on Hollywood turned out to be true? So yeah, I hear all this pontificating, but what I'm not hearing, I've heard some reasonable talk from Dr. J and from Robert, and then everybody wants to say, well, I'm more social signaling. I'm more better because I don't vote. I'm more better because I look at the local elections. No, your duty. Look, I fought to defend this Constitution for a long time, and literally put my ass on the line. And this really upsets me when somebody who I went over and served for will say I don't have to vote. You know, you're right. You are absolutely right. I did that so you could say and shirk your little responsibility, your little duty to vote. And that's all I have to say.
Before we get any responses to that, we do have questions and comments from YouTube chat. So let me turn to my guest co-host, Adam, to take those questions and comments.
All right. From YouTube land, let's see here. Black Dog wanted to know when we are going to get Dr. J dolls or Dr. J bobbleheads. His daughter is asking him for a Dr. J doll.
Merchandising will come soon. Just give us several months. It'll start with t-shirts, hats, and then we'll get to the bobbleheads.
And let's see. Also, got quite a bit of comments about our
people about the super chat.
I have not yet. I'm just about to get to that and the newsletter.
Okay.
So, you guys, we just enabled super chat. You can see it down there. It's a little square with a money sign in it. If you ever want to help support the show, feel free to hit that button. You can leave a comment with your donation, and all donations are accepted, and we do appreciate it. We are trying to regrow the channel. We would like to see everybody go over to www.drjradiolive.com. That's Dr. J Radio Live across all social media. If you could, and you would like to, you can get in on our newsletter. We are fixing to release one. I'm not sure how many days from now.
It'll be out by Monday, this first one, and then after that, we should be because it's fairly set up to be regularly often after that. Depending on what people want, do they want one every month, one every other week? We'll figure out the frequency after the response or the feedback comes from the first one.
Right, fantastic. And also, I just want to remind everybody, Flashback Fridays is still a thing. I believe we're going to go into hour 2 with a Flashback Friday, but we will be live Monday.
Next week will be a Flashback Friday. Today's guest that was meant to be Flashback Friday, Stephen Bassett, will be pushed on till next week. Today we're enjoying Roger Stone that's coming on after we are done here. So yes, for those of you who asked, we do apologize that the webmasters left before we had this sporadic chance to do this roundtable.
And also, Dr. J does appreciate everybody's birthday wishes. However,
yes,
that being said,
yes.
We would like to sing you happy birthday.
Okay. Oh, no.
Right. This is a conspiracy, Dr. J. I said I'd come on the show if I could sing you happy birthday, so I'll give it a start. I also want to say there are 3 J's involved in here. I have 3 friends. Their birthdays are right here, and they're all starting with J. So I'm going to sing this to you, Dr. J, with the enclave around you, okay? So everybody, you can join me in. I'm going to start right now, okay? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jay. Happy birthday to you. And many more.
Well, thank you all. I've never had that on there before. That's for darn sure. Did we get through all the comments on YouTube, Adam, and questions?
Yes, I believe all that we have time for.
Okay, now we do got 5 minutes left, and Chris, I don't know if you heard James's comment, and I hope it's still fresh in people's minds because it is in mine, of course, and I wanted someone to respond to that because, James, you feel the same way me and Chris do in that sense. We share the same views as that. So anybody want to respond to what James said, whether it be Tom or Robert?
I could dive in.
Go ahead.
You know, I respect James too. I totally relate with what he's saying about being an American and respecting each other and not slamming each other because of our political. And that's, I think, that may be, in a conspiracy sense, that may be the psyop to get us fighting with one another, to label each other and to fight with one another instead of uniting together. Because I think that's where we're strongest, is when we unite together. So in spite of what anybody thinks of me, I have a high respect for all of you, especially a guy that's got his ass on the front line like James does. And so I really respect anybody that's got themselves out there for our country. That being said, my fellow patriots right here in this country, if you feel passionate about this country like I know you do, then we need to unite together, and let's stop using the labels, the pejoratives, the psycho propaganda, the psyops, and everything else that's being put on us to divide us. That's all I got to say.
Okay, now since we have literally 3 minutes, I want to go around everyone to get a closing comment and anything you want to say. So now I'm going to go to Robert.
Well, first of all, I would like to say, Dr. J, I appreciate you as a very dear friend, and I'm so proud of what you've done in the last year in your recovery.
Thank you.
You are a miracle. And to the other guests, I would say we live in the greatest country in the world, and we should just appreciate that more and try to bring peace and harmony to our environment, radiate goodness. My friend Charles Fielding died recently, and he used to have one saying. He always used to sign off as "one love," and I added to that. It's now an axiom: try one love and nothing but kindness, at least for the holiday season. And join us tomorrow night on LNM. Dr. J and I are going to do a show on life on Mars in film, fantasy, and reality. So thank you for listening, and happy birthday, Dr. J.
Thanks again, Robert, and I appreciate everything you've done to get me here, because I was almost dead. I mean, according to 6 different doctors in multiple hospitals, I should have been dead, diagnosed terminal. Anyhow, thanks again for the kind comments. Let's go to, I'm going to leave James last because he was the last person in. Let's go to Pam.
Hi, Dr. J. I appreciate you bringing me on the show tonight, and I just hope that we are able to get more listeners in, and I really wish that you have a happy birthday today, and enjoy the time that you have with your family, and I hope we do many more shows like this. I mean, this is something we should think of doing more often.
Yes, roundtables are definitely fun, and I definitely agree. This hour flew by. We probably could have pulled off 2. Okay, let's get to Adam.
Hey. Closing comments, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone who participated and came through for us. I also wanted to personally thank James for his sacrifice to this country, and duly noted, sir, what you said. And also, with that, I want to thank everybody out in YouTube land for being very participative in the chat. And other than that, happy birthday, buddy.
Thank you, Adam. And the night is still young. Let's hope we can turn it around. Okay, Chris.
Yeah, I also wanted to say thank you to everyone, and at risk of sounding like a parrot here, and a little cliche, but yes, we need to remember that we are all Americans, and we should all be patriotic and love our country and each other. And also, we're all passionate, and we all take politics seriously, but we got to remember to not be too overly sensitive also. I don't think we need to necessarily stop using labels, but we should stop being sensitive about them, and also stop using them to hurt other people, intentionally. So those are my thoughts.
Well said. Okay. Now, Tom, did you get any final words?
No, just my little slogan is peace, love, happiness, and balance to everybody. Happy holidays. Happy birthday, John. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I love all you guys. Bob, it was nice talking with you. James, all you guys have all been great to be with. Thank you very much.
And let me say, your little saying, that reminds me of when we used to throw raves. Plur was plastered all over flyers. Peace, love, unity, respect. I still think that applies, depending on whether you went to raves or not. It is a unity thing. Okay, James, final words.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. Happy birthday, Dr. J. All of you gentlemen and ma'am. You guys are all stellar individuals. I just got torqued off from comments that I'd seen on the thing, so my apologies if you took that little rant I did.
James, no, what you said came from the heart, and I'm glad you said it because we've been talking about that, and that's why I invited people on both sides, because if we don't debate, we don't get anywhere.
Exactly, and it's about everybody has their right to speak. Everybody deserves to speak, and there are better men than I that are taking a dirt nap now that died to defend those rights. And that's all I have to say. And quit letting them divide us. We're Americans in the end. That's all I have to say, brother. Thank you.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Katie
Much
Neely,
love,
Steve's
James.
manager.
Happy birthday, Dr. J.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I was going to actually start singing for He's a Jolly Good Fellow, but I got through it. Bug it. No, but I'll save that for next year.
Okay, well said. When I'll hit the big 40. This is the last year in my 30s, 364 days after today. And no, we're not hitting a leap year. Yeah, actually, no, not quite yet. Yeah, so I better enjoy it while we still can. Well, folks, Adam already said it all. Remember, drjradiolive.com. That is drjradiolive.com. Every single social media is at drjradiolive. Things from minds.com, BitTube, Instagram, Twitter, Flickr, Tumblr, YouTube, Google+, Facebook. I mean, whatever you could think of, Steam it. Every single social media site. Buffer's another one. I can't even remember all. Pinterest is all at DRJ Radio Live. With that being said, you folks have a great Friday night, evening, wherever you are in this world, and we'll be joining you Monday with a live show.